The question that we have to ask also and attempt to answer, when somebody dies, what happens to them and what are we supposed to do with them? In other words, most of us may have seen or heard or come across family members who have passed away. When we see these rituals, we need to understand the process. We need to be in the position to explain it to non-Muslims. We need to explain it to our own children, to our own family members. All the things that go on and happen before our own eyes, we need to be able to what? Understand. When you and I are next to an individual who's about to pass away, he or she is in a state of ihtidar. Ihtidar means what? Ihtidar means that they are ready to depart from this world. What do we do? Because unfortunately, some of us, what do? Is we cry. We throw ourselves on the body. These are makruh. Our ulama say it is not recommended to cry next to an individual who is dying. Ulama say it is makruh to be in the state of janaba or hayd. In other words, impure physically next to an individual who is crying, who is about to die. We need to be in the state of purity, ideally in wudu. If the person is about to die, what do? We close their eyes. And at the same time, we recite Quran next to them. Which chapters of the Quran should we recite? We recite Surah Yasin and Surah Safat. Remember this. These two have been specifically mentioned by the Ahl al-Bayt alayhum as-salam as chapters of the Quran that will help the deceased in these final difficult moments. So what we are told is that we need to recite the Quran. What else? We need to recite the talqeen. What is the talqeen? The talqeen is a dua that we recite in order to establish and make the belief of that individual absolutely firm in these final moments, because doubt comes to their minds. We've put them in the position of facing the Qibla. How? That if they were to stand up, they would be facing the Qibla. In other words, their feet, when they're lying down, wherever they are, on the hospital bed, at home, their feet is facing the Qibla. That if we were to help them sit up, their face would be in the direction facing Mecca. If we are at home and we have somebody who's passing away, it is highly recommended to take them to a place where they used to pray. They used to perform their salah, their musalla. If it does not involve any hardship or difficulty for that person, no other. If that person will not be harmed, take them to the place that they perform their salah, and you will see that they will become more comfortable. Because we are told the place that you perform your salah is sacred. And every time you come to do your salah, change the place, wherever you are. Why? Because that location will intercede for you on the day of judgment and will act as a witness that you stood before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you performed your prayers. When the person dies and their soul leaves their body, what do? We close their mouth, we close their eyes, and we place their hands right next to their feet. We extend their feet and we cover them with a sheet. These are all recommendations in the Sunnah. Thereafter, we do not leave them in a dark room. Narrations tell us that if an individual dies, keep them in a well-lit room. And ideally, you should not leave them alone. But of course, sometimes this is difficult. But if it is possible for someone to stay there and to recite the Quran with them, then do so. Keep them in a well-lit room. As soon as that individual dies and passes away, of course, it's not haram to cry for them, to somehow express your grief and sadness over this loss. But indeed, it is highly discouraged. And some of the scholars have come forward and said that you should not express what? Jaza. Jaza is what? Sometimes we see people banging their heads on the wall. We see sometimes some of our sisters tearing their clothes or their abba or whatever in anguish or in difficulty or in grief. That should not occur. In fact, there is a kafara for doing so. There is a punishment or a compensation that has to be paid if an individual does this. The only people whom we should express grief and sadness towards in such a state are the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam. And that's where the riwayat point us towards. The other recommendation is what? When an individual dies, spread the news of their death so that the believers prepare themselves to take part in Salatul Mayyit and come for what? Tashyi'. Come for the funeral process.